World Regions Geography, Middle East and North Africa, Part 5. The biggest issue possibly facing the Middle East in the next year or two is the Syrian war and the refugee crisis. Over the last couple of years, we have seen the Arab Spring, the rise of democracies, the overthrow of a lot of dictators that has happened, and but what is going on in Syria is a whole nother level, and you have 1.6 million children displaced by the war. That doesn't include their parents. That's just the children. And when you talk about having that number of children displaced, many people have fled into Turkey, and there are huge, huge refugee camps in Turkey. To think that it's not going to have a destabilizing impact on Turkey, I think, is unrealistic. And as you have these people fleeing even farther into Europe and then not fitting in, they're not being really accepted by the European people, and they're not trying to fit into the culture in Europe. I think you're going to see a backlash in the next few years. You're already seeing a rise in right-wing politics and anti-immigration feelings throughout Europe. And I think that's only going to be something that's going to continue to be exasperated by the combined impacts of increasing refugee population and increasing attacks by ISIS on European countries. And when you have those attacks, they're going to start to blame the refugees. And I think you're going to end up seeing over the next few years large deportations of refugees, or maybe placing them in camps rather than dispersing them in the population. I think it's going to be a very volatile situation for a few years. Here in the United States, President Obama is talking about bringing, hundreds of thousands of Syrians to the U.S. There's already 50,000 Iraqis being transported to California alone. In the Merced, Modesto area, there are approximately 5,000 Iraqi being resettled. In Sacramento, as many as 20,000. I think that's going to change the face of those communities and have some impacts that may be long term. Future geographies, you have oil, diminishing supplies. Once oil is gone, there are going to be a couple of Middle Eastern countries that have built up reserves and have diversified their economy that may still do well in the global markets. But the unfortunate truth is that a lot of the countries in the Middle East haven't taken steps to diversify their economies. They haven't taken steps to prepare their people for a change. And when that change comes, it will probably be fairly abrupt. And when that happens, there is going to probably be a considerable drop in the lifestyle and probably civil and political unrest. Another big issue facing the Middle East is water. The Middle East has one of the highest birth rates any region on the planet, and consequently it's putting more and more strain. And right now, desalination plants are working well because they have cheap energy. But again, oil diminishing supplies, that diminishing supplies may make it more difficult to have desalination, and then sustainability of water, global climate change, increased heating, increased heat, and less rain, less snow may make water sustainability very problematic and create a problem like anything we have seen, a problem where migration may be the only option for millions of people in the Middle East. And peace and stability. Honestly, I don't really believe that you're going to see peace in the Middle East in the next 5 or 10 years. I think you're going to see probably at least 10 more years of instability as the what I would call post-colonial fallout, which is that Europe and France and the European powers created these artificial nation states, i.e., Iraq and Iran, after the fall of the Ottoman Empire. And I think those will break down into a number of smaller countries where you may have 10 or even 12 or 15 smaller countries in the region um, before you're going to see any sort of peace and stability. And at some point, the issue of Israel and Palestine has to be resolved. Um, at this point, I don't see either side giving in any way to create a permanent peace. And until that happens, you're going to continue to see war, and it may go on for generations. And with that, we conclude World Region Geography, Middle East, and North Africa.